Hello guys, my name is the Opus Simmer here, and today I am going to show you how to speed up your Sims 3 game in 2020. So I have done 2 tutorials on this topic before and they've got relatively popular, but that was a few years ago when I was a bit more naive and shy, so I thought I would recover this topic again. As well, I've just bought a new PC recently, and after applying these tips, I have noticed a massive difference in my game. Like, it's running mostly silky smooth. I do have some lag, but it's only when I'm quite deep into a save. This is partly my fault because I haven't been taking the best care of my Sims 3 saves until recently, when I've learned about 1 or 2 of these tips, which I'll be sharing with you guys today. There will be a lot of information to take in within this tutorial, so if you need to pause, just pause. So without a further ado, let's begin the tutorial. Okay guys, so the very first thing we're going to touch on is the options menu in The Sims 3. And this is 1 or 2 things we're going to have to do within our game. I will be touching on the other things later on. But all you want to go ahead and do is press ... on the main menu, or in your save, of course, and go to options. Now, I've already done a recording of this before, but I forgot that I didn't have the right mode enabled. But anyway, there's a few things you need to do here. The very first thing we're going to touch on is our refresh rate. By default, it's set to default. No surprise. But we want to set this to 60, and this is actually going to tie into something else we're going to be doing later by capping our FPS. So this is going to tie in with each other. I will be talking a bit more about that later. Now, you can lower 1 or 2 settings if you wish here, if you notice, okay, it's more of an FPS problem rather than a full-on routing lag problem. So if you're having low dips in FPS, I'd recommend lowering 1 or 2 of these settings, but otherwise, that's all you want to do on the graphics tab. The next tab we're going to actually touch on is this one, general settings. There's 3 things we want to disable here. The main thing though to take away is to disable shop mode. You do not need this enabled. Who wants to go shopping for Sims 3 store stuff in game? And this also ties in to our featured items folder, which I'll be discussing more about later and how to disable that. But just uncheck it because it's going to tie into that later on. Next thing, you want to disable memories. They are enabled by default and they can clog up your save and potentially cause error code 12, or your game will crash often if these are enabled because the RAM usage is more than 3.7 gigs. Which is a massive problem with The Sims 3 because it's only a 2-bit application. I don't know why EA has never touched the architecture of the application over the years. I know they're currently working on a fix from macOS, if I am not mistaken, but it's not coming to Windows. So if I were you, disable them and then you will have a better experience overall. The last thing you want to disable is the interactive loading screens. And you may be wondering, why do I want to disable this? I know they are fun and all, and it's a nice way to spend some time while you're waiting for your game to load, but guess what? It takes forever for your game to load if you have these enabled. I saw a post the other day of a woman and she had her game, okay? It took her 45 minutes just to load up the game because she had this enabled. If she didn't have this enabled, her game probably would have only took 10 minutes in her scenario. So if I were you, keep these disabled and your game will load faster. There's one more tab I really want to touch on. Actually, first, if you plan on going online, I'd only go online when necessary. Keep this disabled when you're not online, people, because that actually also clogs up your game, surprisingly. So I'd keep this disabled if I were you. If you want to chat to your friends while playing The Sims 3, just get Discord or something and load it up on your phone. It's better than this if I were you. But if you do want to share content, then go ahead and enable it, so on and so forth. The last thing I want to touch on here is the EA story progression. Now you may be wondering, what is the EA story progression to do with it? I'm using Nraas story progression. If you're using Nraas story progression, this doesn't so much apply, but I would recommend touching this tab a little bit. I have Nraas story progression, but I have disabled some things here. So I only have pets and celebrities enabled. Now, if I were you, just enable whatever suits your needs. But if I were you, I'd recommend these two enabled at the very least. Alright, once you have done that, you're just going to press accept changes. And that's all you have to do there. Now you can move on to the next part of this tutorial. Okay, so the next topic I'm going to touch on is the Sims 3 folder. So there's a few things I need to touch on in this folder that you need to do, people. You seriously actually need to do these things. And it will really make a huge difference to your game. So listen up. The very first thing you should do every time you load up your game is to delete these 5 caches, which I'm about to right now. This one, this one, this one, this one. Oh yeah, delete your script errors as well. This one and this one. Delete those. You do not need them. They do regenerate every time you load up your game. So you need to do this every time when you load up your game. But otherwise, just go ahead and delete them. They are harmless in this scenario. The next thing we want to go ahead and do is we want to go into our downloads folder and move every .sim3 pack in here and move them to somewhere else. Because if you have more downloads in here, they're going to actually kind of load up with the game. They're still installed. They're still installed in your game. There's no need for these to be here. So just delete them. The next folder I want to touch on is the DC backup folder. Delete everything in here except ccmerge.package. ccmerge.package is actually needed for the store content this game needs. It's a bit annoying, but basically the store content reads off this file, and that's how your store content works in game. So if you delete this, your store content will be gone. So make sure you keep this installed. The next folder I want to touch on is the world cache. Now you may be wondering, why am I touching on this folder? Well, listen up. If you're playing in a custom world, delete everything in here once in a while. Don't do it every time you load your game, but maybe once every sim week or so, just delete these because it can clog up your game a little bit, and you do not need these. They do rejuvenate every time you load up the game though, so you just need to know that. But if you delete these every time, it will make a huge difference to the performance. Now, I do need to leave a note here. If you're running Mac OS, do not do this. If you do, I think if I remember from experience, I don't have a Mac, but from what I've heard, basically it can destroy your game. So do not delete these if you're running Mac OS. The next thing you want to go ahead and do in here is remove all the unnecessary screenshots to a different folder. So you can see I have 36 screenshots. Okay, that isn't a huge amount, but I've seen much bigger folders than this. I think I've seen folders like that are 200 to 300 pictures, or even like 3,000 pictures deep. So if I were you, remove these once every little while. I'm not going to do it here because I actually am running the game off an NVMe, but if you're running the game off a hard drive, remove these every time you load up the game. It will really make a huge difference. Next folder I want to touch on is the save folder. Remove any unwanted saves that you do not need in your game. And I'm actually going to be talking a bit more about saves later and how saving makes a huge difference. So you can see I actually have my saves labeled separately, but I will talk more about this later on as we get deeper into this tutorial. The last thing we want to do in here is to mess with the featured items folder. Now, I've already done this, but basically we need to delete everything in here and basically deny access for the game to write its content to it. Now, I've already done this, but when you first load up this folder, there will be lots of content in it. Delete the content in it before you do what I'm about to do right now. Once you've deleted the content, you're going to go right click. You're going to go down to something called properties. And you're just going to go over to security. Now, this depends on your system, but basically all you actually have to do is press edit and change these permissions for here from allow to deny, and that's all you have to do. Apply and then just okay. This will allow the Sims 3 to not write its content to that folder, meaning that you won't have any featured items generated anymore. They're gone. That's all we mainly need to touch in this folder. Now, I will be talking a little more about CC later on and a tool that can really help you out. But for now, let's move on to the next part in the tutorial. So the next thing I'm going to touch on is your GPU, getting it recognized by the Sims 3. Now, I also did a tutorial on this a few years ago, and that was the old way of doing it, and it is quite a tedious process because you need to know the name of your GPU. Oh yeah, you need to know, okay, what ID it has, so on and so forth, and then you have to go into another file and edit all of it. Anyway, this process has been made a whole lot easier because of this tool, the Sims 3 GPU add-on support. Now, we will still have to touch the graphics rule.sgr a little later on in this tutorial, but it's going to be for different reasons altogether. So, all you need to go ahead and do is you will need an account for this site. It has the latest graphic cards, so at the time of recording, the latest version supports, I believe, the latest Ryzen 4000 APUs, if I remember, and the latest Intel GPUs, or whatever they're called. They're integrated graphics, okay? So basically you just go ahead and download this. Now, you will need an account on the site, but you can use a temp email or something if you really don't want to sign up for the site and just go ahead and download it that way. You will also need Winwar, and you basically, once it's downloaded, I'm just going to find it here. Here it is. Click on it and click this file right here that comes in the folder. Now, I will leave a link to Winwar, by the way, if you do not have Winwar. Basically, it opens up with this little dialogue here. Just press OK. If you're running Steam, you just go ahead and press the Steam version of the game. Just press that key. All you need to do is press this, device found, and then it says you apply this, and then you just press this button. But I've already done this, because if I press it now, I'm going to get an error because I've already done this. But if you've not done this, you won't get this error, and it should work just fine. After you do it, just close down, and that's all you have to do. Your game has just recognized your GPU without even editing any files. To double check to see if that has worked in your game, you're just going to go and load up the game once, and then go into your Electronic Arts, The Sims 3, and go over to deviceconfig.log, and just go down to this line right here. And if it says found one matched one after your GPU, it's a success. That has actually worked with your game, and now you don't need to edit the graphics rule as such. We will still have to do one or two things in there later on, but you should be able to run the game without any graphical problems or the game crashing, so on and so forth. Okay, so there is one file we want to edit here, and that is going to be graphicsrules.sgr. It's in the same folder we were at earlier when I was showing you how to cap your FPS, program files, x86, or wherever your game is installed, Origin Games or SteamX or whatever, the Sims 3 game bin. And now you just have to press this key, and this will bring you into this program. Now, there is a few things we need to do here. The very first thing we need to do is change this right here. By default it's set to 32, but after overwriting the graphics rules it's set to 2048 if I remember. I think it's set to 2048 once you override with the graphics rules. But we want to change this. We want to change this to the amount of VRAM is in our card. Now you may know it already, but if you don't know how much VRAM you have, I'm going to show you a very quick way of doing it. All you need to do is right click on your taskbar, go over to Task Manager, and go over to something called Performance. Okay, and go over to GPU 0. Now you will need to put this in full screen, but you can see it says 0.5 out of 8 gigs. So I actually have an 8 gigabyte card here because this is an RTX 2070 Super, which by default has 8 gigs. If you have a 1080 Ti, it's 11 gigs. If you have like a 1060, it can be 3 or 6 gigs. It depends on the card. Once you know how much VRAM you have, you want to put this in megabytes. Now, you could just put 8,000 if you want, but if you want to be specific, set it to 8079 if you have 8 gigs of VRAM. Once you've done that, this is what you want to change next. This by default is set to false. Just change this to OK. It will make a bit, true, because it will make a bit of a difference. It's not much of a difference, but it will definitely make a difference. The last thing we want to change in this file is this here. By default, the CPU level, Uber, High, Medium, and Low is set to 4, 3, 2, 1. We don't want it that way. We want this to 4, 4, 4, 4. The reason why it was set to 4, 3, 2, 1 is because back then, not many CPUs would have not been able to manage the amount of crowd sometimes you would see in an open world, which also led to lag because you're limiting the CPU power. But anyway, these days 95% of CPUs will not have any problem running this game. You will even be able to load up a lot, no problem with 20 sims on it. I am telling you now. So set this to 4, 4, 4, 4. An amazing experience. It will really make a difference to your game, and as well it will use more of your CPU because the Sim 3 doesn't use much CPU power, to be fair. The next thing we have to do is to basically limit the refresh rate and FPS in this game. Now remember earlier we set the refresh rate back to 60 Hz. Well, this is also going to tie in with this, and what we're basically just going to be doing is capping the FPS for The Sims 3. The reason why is because there tends to be a lot of frame spikes here and there because The Sims 3 is a much older title, meaning that its FPS is quite high. However, The Sims 3 likes to drop a lot of the time in FPS. I have seen drops down to the low 20s once or twice during gameplay, and we do not want that because they're 0.1% lows, which can sometimes cause a bit of lag. So we're trying to avoid this, and if we cap our FPS to 60, this is less than likely to happen. Now, this method that I'm showing you today only applies to NVIDIA GPUs that are currently running a driver after January. I will put up the number on the screen. If you do not have this driver, go ahead and upgrade it using the NVIDIA website. I'll put a link to it in the description if you do not have the latest drivers. For you guys that own an AMD card, you can use RIVA Tuner to limit the FPS. I'm not going to show that way today because I have an NVIDIA GPU, but if you want to know how to do that way, you can look that up online. So, to cap your FPS, you're going to right click, go to NVIDIA control panel. This will take a second to load, by the way. And this should load up. You then want to go over to program settings. And you want to go ahead and add a program. So to do that, you just make sure this is enabled, checked, and add the Sims 3. If it doesn't show up here, you're just going to go browse and go ahead and find your Sims 3 on my scenario, in my scenario it's on my program files, x86, origin games, the Sims 3 game, bin, and then it's just this file right here. But I have already done this, so I'm not going to select it here. But basically you select that, and there's a few things you just want to limit here. Sorry if I need to look at if the audio changes, but basically the very first thing is this here, max refresh rate. Change this to 60 FPS, which you just can put in there, and press OK. I've already done this, and make sure it's enabled because it's off by default. So use on, and that's all you need to do. Okay. There's also another thing I also recommend doing here. Turn on virtual sync. It will make a huge difference to the Sims 3. I'm telling you now. Virtual sync, you won't have any of those bars on the screen. Firstly, when you're playing the game, and then just see that choppy kind of movement. Or just kind of two frames stuck with each other. It's hard to just explain, but just enable it. It really makes a huge difference. All you have to do then is just press apply, and then that's all you need to do. You have limited the FPS to your Sims 3 game. It should now only run at 60 FPS. So I really do want to show off this next tip, but unfortunately I cannot because I am running technically a modified version of the game because I have Reshade 2.0. But basically what you can do, and I will have a tutorial on how to do this in the description. Basically you can open up sims3.ini and set the memory limit to 4,000 or 4 million. Okay, so change the 2 to a 4. Now you could set it higher, but if you set it higher it's not really going to make much of a difference. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because not many people know about it, but if you change the memory limit for your game, it will really make a massive difference to the performance. However, the limit is 3.7 gigs, so if it's more than that, the game will crash either way if it reaches that point. There's another 1 or 2 things you can also do in the sims3.ini. I cannot show it to you here, guys, today, but you can change the dynamic routing and a few other things. I'm not going to show it because I can't, but I will have a tutorial in the description below if you want to do it. It will make a bit of a difference. It's not a massive difference, but it will help with routing within your Sims 3 game. Okay, so there's a few must-have mods this game really needs, and I have to say download these mods because they're really going to help your game run smoother. And they're by a company called Nraas, and it's these 4 mods: Nraas Master Controller, Story Progression, Error Trap, and Overwatch. Particularly Error Trap and Overwatch, but Master Controller and Story Progression are really useful as well. Master Controller and Story Progression have modules you can download if you also want to download the base mod along with them. They do make a little bit of a difference to your game. It doesn't speed up your game, but like if you want to add more features to your game, you can go ahead and do so. Same with Story Progression. And yeah, they mainly do speed up your game, particularly Error Trap and Overwatch. Now you need to note something about Error Trap. If you're running 1.67 or the Steam version of the game, you are going to have to use this version. But if you're running 1.69, you can use version 100 without any problems. I have version 100 in my game and I don't have any problems. I'm running 1.69, but if you are running 1.67, make sure you have the correct version of this mod installed. Okay, so the next program, or the thing I was talking about, is CC Magic. This is only for advanced CC users, so if you are new to the CC scene or mod scene, I wouldn't so much recommend using this because it's just all new to you. But if you're a bit familiar with it, I'd recommend downloading this. This is called CC Magic, and basically it's a custom content management and game launcher, but the game launcher doesn't work anymore if you're running 1.69, so it's just basically a custom content management tool. And basically all it does is help you manage mainly your CC. Now you can also use it for mods, but a lot of people will tell you, okay, do not use it for your mods, and I'd agree, but I have used it for my mods and I haven't had any problems. So yeah, it does also work for mods. Now it says it's works with Supernatural. It does work with the latest patch 1.67, 1.69. You just need to know if you're running 1.69, the play button won't work. When you press that, nothing's going to happen because of the whole launcher thing. But basically, you'll go to this site, Mod The Sims. You will need an account, and you just download this file, this one. And basically, all you have to do is go ahead and install it. You just go ahead and go through the installation, and that only takes 2 to 3 minutes. Once you have done that, you're going to be greeted by a brand new interface. Now this isn't brand new because I've already had my installation here. As you can see, I have a few things here: cruise ship and tree lamp. Okay, I need to delete this. I forgot to do this, people. Do not launch your things through this. I need to note that this does not work for World. I forgot all about that. That was in here. But anyway, I deleted those. But yeah, you want to know that it doesn't work for some things like World or Patterns. Do not use these with Patterns or World. But with anything else, you can use CC Magic. Now, to install something, you can either use, if you're using a .sim3 pack file, you just have to install it by the launcher and then sort it in here. But if you're using a .package file, all you actually have to do is download it. Now, I don't have any one to show you today, but basically, you're just going to put the .package file into the Sims 3 launcher, and that is it. That's all you have to do. And once you're finished, you just go ahead and press rebuild, and there you go. It will take a minute when you first load up. I'm not going to go into full detail on this program because it does take forever to explain. But you can make these all subfolders and all that. And also you have access to your old legacy mods folder if you want to. Yeah, it's a very useful program and it really will help you. And it can even speed up your game. I've noticed a massive difference using CC Magic, so I highly recommend it. Once you're actually finished rebuilding the profile, just make sure you enable the profile in here. And that's all you have to do. Go ahead and launch your Sims 3 game and you'll have a smooth ride. I kid you not. It makes a huge difference to your Sims game. And I'm surprised not too many people know about it because it really makes that massive difference to your Sims 3 game. And I think I'd highly recommend it to anyone who wants to really speed up their Sims 3 game. So I am quickly going to show you how to configure Nraas Overwatch in your game. I will be doing a more in-depth tutorial on this, but this will make a difference for definite. So all you have to go in here is go to Nraas on the City Hall. You're just going to go over to Overwatch. And you're just going to go into settings and just copy the settings I have. Just pause here. These 5 are true. The next 5 are true. Everything is true up to this point right here. And you don't need this or this enabled. You can pause here and you can see the settings I have. So I'll just quickly scroll down. So basically copy the settings I have right here and you should be ready to go with Nraas Overwatch. And that's all you have to do. Once you have done that, you've configured Overwatch and it should run really well. Alright, the second to last tip I want to show you in this video is Smart Game Booster. Now, what Smart Game Booster does is basically it allows you to basically stop processes from running while you're playing your game. Now, you might not want to stop all the process running while playing your game. Let's say, for example, you have Discord up and you need to chat to your friends, or you're listening to Spotify or something like that, or you have a Chrome tab up. You might need to relaunch it, but basically this program is going to allow The Sims 3 to use a bit more resources and oomph. and your game runs slightly better if you have this installed. So you basically just go free download it from this website. The free version will do. You do not need any other version of this software, and basically all you need to go ahead and do is launch it once you have it installed. Now there is a certain process we need to do. Now I've already done this, but basically all you want to do is you want to go to your game path, and this is what you want to do. You want to go to program files x86 or wherever your game is installed. So in my scenario, it's on this drive right here. Right. Here, so you can see you do not want to use ts3w. You want to use ts3.exe and select it and just call it ts3. So here is the game. You can see it's right here, The Sims 3. All you want to do now is right click, and you're just going to go ahead and click boost. Now hopefully this doesn't stop recording, and you just want to press the free version, and here we go. You can see it's boosting, and there you go, it has done its job. So all now I actually have to do is go back into my game and enjoy the joys of The Sims 3. The final tip I want to give to you in this tutorial is to save your game in separate save files. I have seen many people make this mistake, and I've kind of made this mistake in the past as well, but here's the catch. You don't want to save it in a cycle of 4 or in a cycle of 2. You want to save it, each save, in a separate save file all together. This is the little secret, people, and this is what will speed up your game. And this is what I haven't been doing for a while, until recently when I found out about this tip. And apparently it's supposed to make a massive difference to your Sims 3 game in terms of performance. Because you're not saving the same thing to the same file over and over and over again, it really speeds up your game dramatically. And I highly recommend doing it because your game is less than likely to get corrupted. And if it does get corrupted, you also have backups. And as well, your game runs faster in general. So you have performed all the tips in this video. So you may be wondering, what is performance like? Well, I'm going to show you right now. So all I just have to do is press play in 1, 2, 3. And here we go. And the very first thing that's come up here is an error trap error. How coincidental. And yeah, the game runs decently well. Okay, this save probably isn't the best example because I'm a bit far into it. This is what I mean. If a save is quite progressed, it will lag. So you can see there was another error trap. That was the reason why the game lagged there, because the sim got stuck. But you can see for the most part it's running really smooth, and I'm not surprised. I was doing the a piece of footage earlier, but I messed it up, and they decided to try for a baby. But yeah, you can see that. Yeah, they decided to conceive a baby without my permission. But congratulations to the couple. For the most part. Yeah, this is my current household. You can see it is running quite well, to be fair. I actually have quite a beefy PC. You probably saw earlier I have a 2070 Super in here and a 3700X. I think you saw earlier I had 32 gigs of RAM. So the game does run really well as it stands, but because this is a well progressed save, and because some of the tips didn't apply for this particular save, this is why it's kind of lagging a lot. But for the most part, it's running quite well. And if I want to speed up my gameplay here, it's not too bad. I would call this playable. It's not 100% playable, but it's manageable, which is an amazing thing to know of. And I feel that playing this game is it's just as smooth as ever. There's a lot more you can do really, but these are the main tips, and I feel that these are the main ones a lot of simmers know about. And your game just runs so well. Like, see how smooth it is? It's mostly smooth. Okay, this wasn't the best example save, but if it was a brand new save, you would be noticing no lag whatsoever, which is the amazing thing. So if you've tried everything in this tutorial and your game is still running really slow and sluggish, well, there's one other thing you can do, and that is to upgrade your system. Now, you may be wondering, oh, I have to upgrade my system, I don't have the money. Listen, you don't have to do too much to your system. The maximum this upgrade is going to cost you is about $150. I am showing it in US dollars, but I will have links to products similar to this on the UK version of Amazon. So, the two main upgrades you can make is to get 16 gigs of RAM, at least running at 3000 megahertz. Now, in this scenario, this is actually DDR4. If you're running DDR3, you probably want 1600 and above, but I'm just using DDR4 as an example because it's the latest standard. But anyway, you want DDR4 at least 3200 megahertz or 3000 megahertz. Here's a good example. This is actually 3200 megahertz. You can see, of course, our Vengeance Pro LPX. Currently $73.99, which is quite a good deal. If I were you, I'd actually pick up a set of these. RAM prices have gone down within the last 2 years, and they're probably at the cheapest point they have ever been for DDR4. So if you own a board that supports DDR4, I think it's the best time to get RAM if you don't have a fast amount of RAM. And to check what speed your RAM is, you can go to Task Manager here and just go over the performance. And if you see it, if it's around 2400, 2600, you could overclock it, but if I were you, I'd buy a new set of RAM because it makes a huge difference within the Sims 3. The other upgrade I'd make is get an SSD or an NVMe drive. Now, this makes a huge difference to your Sims 3 game. Now, you may be limited if your system doesn't support an SSD or NVMe, then you're limited to an SSD. But basically, it's basically a drive that doesn't have a platter in it, and basically it is much faster than a normal traditional hard drive because it's quicker to access the data. However, the SSD isn't actually the best bargain for money, and this is why I've said go for a NVMe. In the UK, it's about €15 dearer, or £15 dearer, Let's go for an M.2 NVMe SSD. But here in the US, you can see, here's the Crucial P1, and this is the SSD I actually own. Now, this is the 500 gig model. I have the 1 terabyte model of this, but it's only $79.99. I actually think that's a really good deal in my opinion, and my personal experience with this NVMe has been so far positive, and I would recommend getting an NVMe if you can afford it, because it will really make a huge difference to your Sims 3 game, especially if you have it installed. And I have noticed a massive difference because I'm using an NVMe drive, and I hope you do too, and it can really make a big difference to your Sims 3 game. I hope this tutorial was helpful and useful. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, it would be greatly appreciated, and leave a like on this video and share it with your friends because this information needs to be known ASAP. But till the next video, Opa is out of the building.